All right, let's return to this wave of domestic terror. There's no question the Albanese government hasn't done enough on national security. There's one person who knows this better than anyone. He knows this area inside out because he used to lead the Home Affairs Department as Secretary. Mike Pezzullo joins me now from Canberra. Mike, thank you so much to have you on the show. Great to have you on the show once again. Look, you're saying that an Operation Sovereign Borders style campaign should now take place to tackle anti-Semitism. What do you mean by this?
Well, good evening, Shari, and very pleased to be here to talk about a very grim topic. Security issues typically are in the background and they're chronic. Whether they're public safety or domestic security, you just simply assume that the agencies have got a grip on the issues. When they become acute, though, and it's not just in this area, as violent, as abhorrent as recent developments have been, but whether you've got a major cyber attack, the wave that we saw when the Islamic State Caliphate was rampant for a few years, whether it's boat arrivals, you need very strong ministerial leadership of unified command and control arrangements, not so that you can direct the field operatives. They know what they're doing. We have fantastic operators in both the Federal Police, in ASIO, and the New South Wales Police. It's really about the upstream issues. Why is this happening? What are the strategic ramifications of it worsening? What can we do to prevent people ideating or getting on boats or attacking us through cyber? Whatever the issue is. OSB was a very successful template that not only staunched the flow of boats in 2013 and 14, but it worked principally because there was a single line of empowered authority from the Prime Minister to Mr Morrison to Lieutenant General Angus Campbell. It didn't mean that Angus Campbell, who was the first OSB commander, all of a sudden became a policeman or all of a sudden became the head of another agency, but he coordinated effort, galvanised it. If agencies then had to say, General Campbell, we can do that, but to get legal authority, we need to get this type of warrant, he would say, fine, get on and do it. It's that really bringing people together that is the galvanising value of a cross-agency, and in this case, I think, multi-jurisdictional task force.
Mike, we've seen this, multiple attacks now that most normal people would consider terrorist incidents, a caravan full of explosives that could create, if it was detonated, a 40-metre blast wave. Do you think there's a case for the terror threat level to be raised?
Look, not necessarily. First of all, there are professional judgments here to be applied by the National Threat Assessment staff in ASIO, who are world's best leading. They are fantastic. I worked very closely with them through their Director General for many years. We already have, from August of last year, Shari, the level raised to probable. That means in the next 12 months, so from August of 24 through to August of this year, there is a 50% chance, in fact, greater than 50% chance, of an attack either being undertaken or planned to be executed and gets thwarted or disrupted. So we're already at a level of greater than 50% risk of it occurring. For the Director General now to go to expected, which is the next level up, and I've got very deep confidence in Mr Burgess and his staff, they would really need something much more fine-grained to say there is an attack that can be expected any moment, and for that to occur without causing undue alarm, I think would be a very big step. I think that at probable, we're already in a situation where we should be activating these CT arrangements in the way that I've been describing in any event, and probably should have been doing so from last August when the level was raised.
I think the reality is, irrespective of whatever the technical criteria is, the terror threat is expected. We are expecting something every week. It seems that there is another incident, another firebombing, which is ideologically motivated, because we know that because there's anti-Semitic graffiti, ideologically motivated. So it is happening. It is unfolding around us. Mike Pezzullo, I want to ask you about...
Sorry, Shari, I should say I agree with you completely, by the way. I just want to be very clear. I'm distinguishing between the clinical, technical standards and thresholds versus the lived experience.
Yes.
I can't imagine what it would be like living as a Jewish Australian person in Sydney, Melbourne, or indeed anywhere else, you certainly would feel that apprehension of an expected attack. So I don't want to take anything away from that visceral feeling that regrettably some members of our community have, and they shouldn't have. They should feel safe.
Yeah, indeed. Mike Pezzullo, do you think it was a wise idea to issue nearly 3,000 visas to Gazans from a terrorist-controlled zone when they're educated and brought up to hate Jews at a time when we have an anti-Semitism crisis? Isn't this showing extreme disregard for anti-Semitism?
Not necessarily. I understand the nub of the question. There is an issue here of judgments about character. Last year there was a debate about whether there'd been an ASIO screening, and again, ASIO have to apply very high thresholds in terms of the security assessments that the Director-General has to make. I think from an abundance of caution, and I can just speak from my personal preference, I wasn't the Secretary at the time. I left office in September of 23. Of course, the abhorrent attacks occurred in October of 23. From an abundance of caution, I probably would have paused any consideration, even from a character point of view. In other words, I would have applied a character lens, which is able to be done through the Migration Act by way of ministerial direction, really just to pause all of those visas, just to work through precisely that issue. So there's a question of the security assessment that the ASIO Director-General has to apply, and by law, he makes that assessment under the very strict criteria of the ASIO Act. And then there are character judgments that have to be applied by the decision makers who work ultimately under the authority of the Immigration Minister.
So you're saying out of an abundance of caution, you would have paused the intake from Gaza after October 7?
Yes. Yes, I would have taken a step back. If you were running Home Affairs. And considered, I would have taken a step back, consulted with Five Eyes partners, consulted with the Israelis. Of course, there are checks done. You can't cross into Egypt, for instance, without going through an Israeli checkpoint. That would have helped. I would have pulled all of that material together, put a freeze on, and this can be done by way of ministerial direction, because ministers can, under the Migration Act, not overturn or modify individual decisions made by decision makers, but they can set parameters for decisions. I would have just, until the situation became clearer, and after extensive consultation with Five Eyes, European, Israeli and other colleagues, I would have taken an extra cautious view of those visas on character grounds, and not just simply the more narrow lens that the Director-General of Security has to, by law, apply in a very restricted fashion. And we had that debate last year about whether there were...
It's a sensible approach, Mike Pezzullo, if you were still Secretary of Home Affairs. But, you know, the Albanese government moved on you in September 2023, despite all of your hard work over a long career, including Operation Sovereign Borders, which we began speaking about tonight. Mike Pezzullo, really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.